What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Underrated and Overlooked podcast. I'm Najee, your co-host, along with Craig Sager. We're going to get into the latest going on with the football news around the state, around the country. But Craig, how you feeling today?
Feeling good. And I just got to bring it up. Do you remember a year ago, Najee, when you commented on the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese thing? And for about a day on Twitter, all you said was, "Hey, it's not exactly the same thing." I think all the people that came after you, they owe you a massive apology because now they're all crying right now. You
No doubt
said
about it.
nothing wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I was
Because
getting torched
you're
about it.
watching the game last night and it's just everyone in the fan doing the same thing. It's like, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I appreciate you bringing that
Najee
up,
was
Craig.
right. But
I-
yeah, a year ago, that was a crazy day.
yes, it was. You remember how crazy our comment section was going? It was like, bro, what are you talking about? Yeah, it was a wild day.
They were coming for you.
Yes, they were, but it proves my theory right. Before we actually jump in, I want to get your thoughts. I don't know if you've seen the press conference, but what did you think of Reese, kind of her comments afterwards, kind of like, what she said about, her kind of, being, in a sense, getting death threats, being sexualized. What's kind of your reaction to that, her thoughts after?
Yeah, I mean, that started last year. We saw how just contentious and divisive the whole result of that game was. I mean, people were, and this is the biggest trending topic I think I've seen in years. And then, I mean, it hasn't really stopped. So
No.
it's still, I think, is beneficial for the game. And listen, that's a tough loss for her. I thought she played very well. She
Yep.
was a beast on the boards.
Yep.
Caitlin just had an incredible night. But yeah, hopefully people, can just calm down a little bit and enjoy the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it's about, enjoying the game, enjoying and marveling at kind of a new era in a sense. I mean, obviously we've always had the women's sports, but I think it's reached a new climax now. I think you definitely see, players being able to profit off their name with the NIL. You get to see the viewings and the ratings. One of the biggest, obviously, nights in women's college basketball history, and star-studded matchups. So I hope people more marvel at that instead of, like you said, getting into kind of
Oh
the
yeah,
other
I mean
stuff.
it's definitely some nasty stuff going on, but no, I mean think about they won the national championship last year. I mean I went to Target the other day. You see Angel Reese, she's on the front cover of Women's Health magazine. So they've been so busy. They're still performing at a top level. Just a tough environment, a tough loss for them. But I mean overall, I thought they handled it well.
Me too. Me too. But shout out to Craig for remembering that and bringing it up on the show
I
because I
was
was not
laughing
expecting
about
that.
it last night. I was watching the game. Just man, that was a crazy day.
Yes. Yes, it was.
But yeah, you're completely vindicated.
Yes. No doubt about it. But all right, we'll keep it rolling. We'll go into some big coaching news, Craig. Maurice Freeman stepped down as the head coach for Brooks County. I was there for a long time. Had a couple stints with the team, ended up winning two state championships, had an overall record of 250 and 117 over the course of his career. And he also was 196 and 65 as a Trojans head coach. But what's your kind of reaction to that?
Well, I mean, he's going to go down as one of the best to ever do it in the state of Georgia. There's rumors he's going to take a job out of state, which that'll be interesting. We've seen a lot of coaches coming to Georgia from out of state, but this just makes a lot of sense for him. It's tough that they lost in the semifinals this last year, but once you have 30 years of being an educator, being a head coach under your belt, you can retire. And so he's going to be able to take that pension, go out of state, double dip after putting in 3 decades of work, and wherever he lands, they're going to get an experienced coach that not only was able to win state titles in Georgia, but every single season they're in contention. Ran that program like a well-oiled machine,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a great accomplishment for him. So I think he was third in the state in terms of active coaches in terms of most wins. I think he's behind Alan Chadwick and then one other guy. So he's definitely one of the all-time greats, but just makes sense for him. He's going to be able to collect that double dipping salary.
No doubt. And do you think Brooks County makes a hire in state, or do you think they go out of state to get their next guy?
Ooh, well, here's the issue. One, they are very late in this carousel, so it makes me question why. Because a lot of these coaches, especially when you aren't fired or there isn't a force to try to get you out. A lot of the times you're going to step down after the season. So he waited about 3 months. Spring practice is right around the corner, but I also think he's the type of guy that he's not going to want to leave it in rough shape. He probably has a guy that has been working on it. He might bring some of his staff with him, um, but he's in a situation where wherever he lands, he's going to have to hit the ground running. And obviously, so is Brooks County. But it would make sense that they already kind of have a guy in mind, and maybe that's why he waited so long, because he wanted to make sure those pieces were in place.
That's a good point. 100% agree. It definitely is going to be tough, as you said, with not a lot of coaches being available, a lot of spots being filled. But we had another coaching change as well. Arabian Mountain hired head coach Kerry Hood. I know you're talking about that job. They had a better season last year, kind of on the up and up. But
Yes.
what do you think about that hire?
I'll get into it, but real quick, Brooks County, they opened the season against Thomasville, their biggest rival. So that's going to be a huge matchup for whoever that new coach is. But with Arabian Mountain, I was so impressed with them last season with head coach Julian Washington. They were 9-2. It was their third region title in state history. Arabian Mountain is not that old of a school. They actually started playing in 2009, but they've had a couple great seasons. Last year was a school record for wins. Going 9-2 was a great accomplishment. They beat Tucker for, I think, just the second time in school history. So that's questionable too, because I haven't seen where Coach Washington landed after that. Obviously, he wasn't forced out, and they loved him there. So we'll see. But I think overall, if you look at it, Arabian Mountain, they made the playoffs 7 out of the last 8 years. They're coming off a region title season, and so I think they're in good shape. But where Julian Washington ends up, I think that's my question.
I agree with you. I think that's going to be an interesting storyline, obviously, to continue to watch. And I agree. I think Arabian Mountain was a team trending in the right way, had one of the better seasons, went deep, won a region title. So I think they got a really good guy.
Yeah, and another reason why they have been successful, I know you've covered it, but we saw Tucker's middle school program, right? Those Arabian Mountain kids, those Tucker kids, they are playing in that star-powered DeKalb Middle School Football League. They're going up against the Gwinnett teams. So they're really getting like prepared, ultra-talented kids from the middle school pipeline. And I think Coach Hood, this is going to be his first ever varsity head coaching job. So I just think that they're getting enough athletes that start playing early. I think they just need to get them focused, evaluate, and I think they'll be very motivated this season because they have been trying to knock on the door and they've been successful.
That is true. And speaking of another DeKalb school, got Cedar Grove hiring Roderick Moore. I was actually surprised he didn't hire their OC within the house after he obviously took the Stockbridge job, but they hired him as their new coach. Made the playoffs 3 times in his career, over 8 years of head coaching experience. Coached at McNair from 2005 to 2008, and also Redan 2014 to 2017. What's your thoughts?
Yep, I said the key for Cedar Grove, you have to get a DeKalb County guy, a guy that understands how that county works, because Cedar Grove has been not just the flagship. They have really put them on the map, more so than anyone. I mean, Tucker's had great seasons. Stevenson's probably the best team out of DeKalb that hasn't won a state title, but Cedar Grove's really been it these last few years. So getting a guy familiar with the leadership in DeKalb, familiar with the county athletic director, they're going to want Cedar Grove to maintain that success. They're going to want to give them the resources, the coverage, and I think it's a good fit. But that was the number one key for me: get a guy from DeKalb, homegrown.
And that is what they did. So they're going to be a team to watch. Obviously, they're going to be on the Peachtree Sports Network, Peachtree TV, to open the season against Douglas County. It's going to be a tough game. Not going to have the quarterback E.J. Colson anymore. Not going to have head coach John Adams. There's rumors circulating about the receiver room. We'll see what happens. But they're going to be a team to watch to see what they're able to do.
Yep, and that coaching tree in DeKalb County, it really all stems from the great Buck Godfrey. He led those Southwest DeKalb teams. A lot of his players, because he was there a long time, he actually, I think, the all-time winningest coach in DeKalb County history. A lot of his former players went into DeKalb County, took head coaching jobs. And so that generation that grew up with Buck Godfrey, they're now taking these jobs. So that's why I felt it was just key to stay within the county, because they really have a unique identity. They've been going up against the Gwinnett powerhouses, the Metro Atlanta ones for years. And so there's just a different sense of pride to stay within that county.
No doubt. And then speaking of, as a team, I wanted to highlight real quick before we go to our next hire. Southwest DeKalb, I just did a story on them. Team to watch kind of in 2024. Got a lot of talent, Craig. I think you'll be really surprised what they're able to do. I'm not sure if they're competing in Corky Kell 7-on-7 at Georgia Tech, but Sam Turner, one of the big guys, watch out for him, runs track. Brandon Gunn, they got some dudes, man. And what's the key part about them is their speed, man. Speed all over both sides of the field. I think they're going to be a team to watch going into next year.
Yep. So they've been in Class 4A. They've won back-to-back boys track and field state championships. And last year, the field events go first. And they went into that Saturday. They were probably about 30 to 40 points behind. And they came back because they dominated all the sprints. They are way faster than everyone else in Class 4A. And if you look at Southwest DeKalb in football, they have not made the playoffs the last few seasons. But, man, they've been so close to it. They played Holy Innocents. I think they lost by 1 or 2 points. Holy Innocents was a quarterfinal team. They had to square off against your Westminsters, Pace Academy. They're getting big wins against them. And any coach that squared off with them the last 2 years, that is exactly what they've said about them. They're like, they are so fast. We have to be prepared to play a team like that. They're unique in their just athleticism. And so I think that is a team that is certainly heading in the right direction, and they're knocking out the park.
No doubt. And thanks for everybody that's tuning in, hitting the comment section. We got a comment from Eric Allen. He said, Woolen had a great hire, Andy Scott from Lafayette High. I know you're a little bit more in tune with the coaches, Craig. What can you say about them hiring Andy Scott and kind of a little bit about his background?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Andy Scott used to be Kennesaw Mountains head coach before Lafayette. So he's definitely been around. Let me double check that real quick.
Okay. But so Craig's going to look into that.
I know that Andy Scott name is very familiar. Let me pull that up. While we pull that up, you mentioned the Westlake one. That was another one that
Did we talked about that, or we didn't talk about that? I'm trying to remember.
I
don't think we have either. I think that was from within too. I think that was formerly the defensive coordinator, correct?
Yep, that's right.
Yep. So yeah, I think with the Westlake hire, I think it's real good. We'll talk about that while Craig looks that up. Your comment, Eric, appreciate you tuning in as well. Yeah, I think hire from within. They're going to be a team loaded with talent. Obviously their running back is very, very good. They're going to have Travis Smith at receiver. The quarterback's coming back. So they got the pieces in place. Westlake's always been talented. It's just all about getting it to come together in form.
Yes, and I was right about Andy Scott. So, yeah, he started at Perry, led them to the quarterfinals in 2007. Obviously, Coach Kevin Smith was on that staff. And then you got Kennesaw Mountain after that for 5 years, led them to their first 5-5 season. Kennesaw Mountain didn't make the playoffs for the first time until 2 years ago. And then at Lafayette in Class 3A, now they're going to Woodland, Cartersville. And, man, Woodland, Cartersville, that's what I would say about that region. Who has Woodland, Cartersville had to square up against the last 2 seasons, and why is that going to benefit them now? Cass, Cartersville, Calhoun, Hiram, and Dalton. Having to face those teams in probably the toughest region in the last few years, that's going to get your football team tough. It's going to get them ready.
No doubt about it. I 100% agree with Craig. I think that gets you right. That gets you know where you at, and a good litmus test to kind of see where your team is going if you're moving in the right direction. So thanks, Eric, man. Appreciate you being a subscriber and obviously tuning into the show. Anybody else that's watching, y'all hit the comment section down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and we'll address any questions that you have.
So he replaces Coach Haywood. And actually, yeah, I had Coach Haywood on the show, and that's what he was saying. Is like our record, it might not reflect it, but I mean, you're going up against Cartersville, Calhoun. These are all state championship programs. So they've certainly seen the best of the best, and they'll have another tough region this year, but it looks like they're dropping down to 4A. But should be a heck of a season.
No doubt. And then quick reaction, Craig, for we move to our last topic on high school before we get to college. What was your reaction to Morris Mitchell being hired as Westlake's coach?
The Westlake one?
Yes.
We did talk about that because, I said Westlake is a team that they have top 10 talent every single year. We put them in the top 10, but they really need to come out and get back in that conversation, have a season like a Grayson, a Mill Creek. Look what they did a few years ago.
That's a good point.
They have got to get there, and I think they have the piece to do it. They were super young these last few years. I think they had 20 guys on their team last year that offers, a lot of underclassmen, but there's no reason they shouldn't be top 10 this year.
No doubt. Looks like we got another comment. It says Purple made a great hire. Brandon Haywood, the Dragons should win a state title soon. He came from Woodland, Cartersville.
That's right. Yep, Pepperell did have a great year, and I think Rick Hurst, I think, was the coach that stepped down. Another situation, Pepperell beat Darlington last year. Coach Hurst didn't get ran out of town. He just simply stepped down after a long career. And Coach Haywood, he was very happy to be at Pepperell, to be a Dragon.
No doubt about it. Well, that's going to do it for our coaching hires, guys. We got some big recruiting news on the high school realms. 2 big commitments. I'm going to share screen for one of them, and the other one we're going to talk about. Give us one sec, y'all. Okay, so here we go. So first one was Grayson's Andre Fuller. He officially announced his commitment to Georgia Tech University. Had a big-time year for Grayson. He's their first recruit in the 2025 class, 4-star on Rivals, 3-star on 247 Sports. This past season, 79 tackles, Craig, 21 TFLs, 16 QB hits, 8 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. And get this, Craig, listen to this stat line. Against Buford in that game at home, the highly anticipated game I was telling you about, they won 19-14. He had 11 tackles, 1.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery in that game.
That is big time. He's a guy that saw playing time as a freshman, obviously progressed as a sophomore, had a huge season last year. Grayson's defense was incredible. And what I find interesting is look at who he was recruited by. It was Jess Simpson at Georgia Tech. That's actually Buford's former head coach way back when they were winning all those state titles in the early 2000s. He's been with the Falcons. He's been in the college ranks. And so he knows Gwinnett football. He probably watched that Buford game. And so getting recruited by Jess Simpson, that is a guy that definitely knows defensive talent when he sees it.
I think real quick, too, before we move to our next commitment, I think Grayson is going to be really, really good defensively next year. Obviously, you're going to have Tyler Atkinson. He'll be a grown man next year. We see how good he's been. 197 tackles. We talked about over 15-plus sacks. But you got him, you got Jalen Bell, and you also got Fuller on the edge. And then he also got another guy, Josiah Victor. So I think defensively, and they got Anthony Davis, too. I forgot about him. Anthony Davis, 2026 recruit. That's really, really good. 3-star, I believe, on most platforms. I mean, their defense is going to be loaded next year.
100%. No, I can't wait to see them play. My goodness.
Absolutely loaded.
Yeah, and they're going to be able to be so creative on the defensive line with their blitz packages. They have so much speed at the linebacker position with Tyler Atkinson, a guy that literally had 200 tackles last year. And then just pick your poison on the defensive line. So they're going to be really dangerous. I expect the turnovers to go up. And what people need to remember, that Grayson coaching staff last year was probably the youngest in the state, did a phenomenal job. They lost their region opener, ended up winning the region, made it all the way to the semifinals. So really watch out for them.
Yes, definitely watch out for them. They're going to be a team to be out there. I believe they'll be 6A this year. They got some pretty interesting teams on their schedule as well. The last one we'll show you guys is Julius Columbus of Gainesville High School. He made his commitment yesterday per his Twitter at Julius Columbus 1. Y'all go give him a follow. Thank you to the man above, 100% committed. And as you guys can see, he is committed to Duke University. Craig, what is your reaction?
It's a big one. No, it's huge. Didn't he have 20 sacks last year?
Yes, he's pretty up there. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because I remember looking at those Max Preps statewide rankings. Yeah, he was just getting it done.
Yeah,
huge guy. I mean, that's a great get for Duke.
Yes, it is, Craig. I think a great get. I think an underrated get for them too. I think the kid's a beast, and I think he's gonna, definitely be able to bring a lot to their team. And they're not a team obviously that has a lot of big time defensive linemen, but I think he can dispel that theory when he goes. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a beast here on the high school level. I think he'll be a beast when he goes there too.
No, 100%. It's a great get for Duke. I think a keen observation to jump on him early.
Yes. All right, y'all. Last topic for high school. Got to get your thoughts, Craig, on this uniform combination by Warner Robins. Audience, y'all comment below. Are y'all feeling this combo or y'all not feeling this combo? So it's coming to the MAC this fall. Demon Eye Green game day fits. We're so pumped. Show this New Jersey combo some love in the comments. So that's what you got. A green and red and with the red striped helmet. What is your thoughts, Craig?
I think this is the best. I think this is the best way to pull off an April Fool's because one, it is, and I don't know, maybe it's real, but it's believable. It's funny, and you also get to see how people react to it. Do they want to see this or do they not? I saw a bunch of puke emojis. I think people are pretty content with seeing the red and black or maroon and black, but I just think that's hilarious.
Yes.
Whoever did that,
yeah,
well done.
Definitely. Shout out to the social team at Warner Robins. You wanted to bring it up, guys. It's a little joke. We thought that was pretty amusing itself. But before we move on, Craig, was any big high school news that you want to hit on, football news that you've seen across?
I think it's important that Andre is the first commit in that Georgia Tech 2025 class. So it's a big move for him.
Yes, it is. I mean, I agree. I know a lot of schools have been getting them. We talked about Alabama last week, which we'll talk about them more today. But they got a bunch of them. Georgia's in there. Obviously, you got Ohio State's been killing it in 25. But yeah, I think it's big them blending that, and they've been waiting on trying to get a guy from 25, and I think that's good news.
100%. And just think about what it means to him. He was the first, and he gets to see that class build around him. So
and he can start recruiting.
Exactly. So no, congrats to him. Big get for Georgia Tech.
No doubt about it. Well, guys, that's going to conclude our high school segment. We're going to go ahead and bring on our guest, our Georgia insider, Hayden Gilbert, to talk some UGA football. So give us one moment, y'all. Ooh. All right. Let's see. So no, I got to do it like this. Okay. Oop. Okay, I got to change it. Hold on. Why is he not bigger though? You can't see us though. I mean, that's fine. What's going on, Hayden? Sorry, I know I'm trying to do on you.
It's all good. It's all good. Not much. Feeling good. It's gonna be an interesting week for Georgia recruiting and interesting week for spring practice for UGA.
No doubt about it, and then that's where we want to start. We'll start with recruiting real quick. Obviously, Craig, let you come in here too with your questions. But Matt Zollers, right? We talked about it last week, Hayden. Just about how does that 25 class look at QB, especially with the commitment of Jared Curtis in the 2026. Zollers is expected to be on campus his last visit this upcoming week before he makes his commitment in a couple of days. So, what's kind of your thoughts on it? Do you think Georgia has a chance to land him?
I think Georgia has a chance to land him. From what I've been seeing and hearing, it's Penn State, then Georgia. Missouri is seeming to get up there too. I think right now he's a Missouri or a Penn State lean, but thanks in this day and time, recruiting changed so quickly that who knows, by Thursday when he commits, it could be Pitt, Penn State, Missouri, or Georgia.
No doubt. And then in terms of, obviously, we're going to see where he commits, but in terms of his qualities, Hayden, where do you think he could possibly bring to the UGA offense when he comes in, or if he does decide to come to Georgia? What kind of fit do you think he could be for the Bulldog program?
I mean, I think he fits in perfectly. He, just like Jared Curtis, he's sort of that same build, strong arms, 6'3", 6'4", 200-plus pound quarterback that isn't – I wouldn't say he's super mobile, but is mobile enough to take what the defense gives him and extend drives, extend plays.
No doubt about it. And then what else you hearing just in terms of recruiting? We talked about another one off air. What's your thoughts on just Mason Short? He nailed down his top 4: Kentucky, Clemson, Georgia. I know I'm missing another team, but what's your thoughts on him and him possibly coming to Georgia?
I think right now Georgia is by far the front runner for him. He's committing on Friday. He's coming out of Evans, Georgia. He's a massive interior offensive lineman. I mean, 6'5", 6'6", 300-plus pounds. It's all good weight, and he has room to put on a lot more good weight and muscle onto his frame that's already – I mean, he's already pretty polished. I mean, he's a top 200 player in the country, and I think he fills in a spot in this coming recruiting class that is right now Georgia's missing as an interior offensive lineman.
No doubt about it. And then I'm hearing this kind of an arms race right now. Obviously, you said Georgia's the front runner between them and obviously Clemson. We've seen Clemson get a lot of Georgia guys here recently from the state. Just what's your thoughts on that and the chances maybe Clemson has of getting them as well?
I mean, Clemson's always going to recruit the state of Georgia very well. They're just across the border. They're on Lake Hartwell, up just across the border in South Carolina. And Dabo Swinney has really recruited the state of Georgia really well. I mean, his 2 biggest players in his career both are Georgia quarterbacks, and Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. Multiple other great players have come out of the state of Georgia. They've recruited the state of Georgia really well. I mean, last year they got Vic Burley out of Warner Robins, who was one of the best edge rushers to come out of the state in a long time. They just recruit the state of Georgia very well, and it would not be a shock at all to see him go to Clemson.
No doubt about it. And actually, we got a comment. Somebody wanted you to answer a question. So let's get your thoughts on this too, Hayden, real quick from Eric Allen. He said, Jabari Bryce, wide receiver from Cartersville, is being recruited by Ohio State in Georgia. What's kind of your thoughts on Bryce? I think you got a chance to see him on TV this past year. Hayden, when we had the game on Peachtree Sports Network, what's your thoughts kind of on Jabari Bryce and if he's a fit for the Georgia program?
I mean, I think he's a fit for the Georgia program. Georgia's been developing wide receivers really well. Cartersville has really developed wide receivers to a high extent over the past, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Has developed athletes really well. I mean, at 5'9", 108 pounds, he's a developed wide receiver. And Georgia's has been known to go after some of those smaller wide receivers. Just this past year, they went after Sokobi White right there, just down the road in Cass. If Georgia does recruit him well, I would not be surprised if they can get him, because he's a high-end, speedy slot receiver. I mean, he caught, I think, over 700 yards last season. He was one of their more productive wide receivers. He was one of the bigger parts in that win over Cass that they had last year.
No doubt about it.
That game.
Yeah, remember that one.
Crazy game. Yeah, he certainly came up clutch because Cartersville, they've had a very young passing attack the last 2 seasons. They've also been a team that we've seen it. Look what they did to Calhoun. Massive, heroic comebacks, and he was obviously a part of it, coming up with big plays when they need it. But speaking about receiver, Jeff Sentell had a report this weekend. It was Douglas County hosted the Friday Night Lights. It was a receiver-oriented event, and CJ Wiley is now coming up as a potential landing spot for Georgia. And what this points out, which I find interesting, I totally forgot, when he was at Milton, his receiver coach was Terrence Edwards, one of the best Georgia receivers ever. Now Coach Edwards is obviously at Mount Vernon. But what do you think about CJ Wiley? Because he's obviously going to blow up. He's got to have so much confidence heading into his senior season, already won a state title. I think Milton is a clear favorite in 5A this year. He shared the role very well. Guy is clutch, a complete receiver. how big of a priority do you think it is for Georgia to get him as a potential wide receiver one?
I mean, since the beginning of the new year, I think Georgia's pushed for CJ Wiley. I mean, he fits a role that Georgia has really struggled to fill over most of Kirby Smart's tenure, especially the last 3 or 4 years of that true X wide receiver. I mean, he's 6'4", 200 pounds. He's speedy. He fills that role of a guy that can go win jump balls and win outside on the edge during press coverage. I mean, Marcus Rosemy, Saint, Ra Thomas. They've just brought in Colby Young, but they've really struggled to get that true X wide receiver that can win outside consistently on the edge. And since someone like Javon Wynn in Kirby Smart's second year, it's a plays that Georgia has struggled, but they found ways around it. I think if they can add someone like CJ Wiley, it'll really help diversify the passing attack for Georgia.
Yeah, and you also, I mean, you don't want to see him go to a rival school because he might tear you up. And at this camp, Terrence Edwards, he said that he believes undoubtedly that CJ Wiley is a top 50 player in the country for his class. Do you see him rising to that level this upcoming year? Obviously, made a big jump as a junior last year. We all saw what he did, but is he going to have that 1,500-yard season, that big breakout performance?
I could see him rising. I'm not sure. I mean, Terrence Edwards definitely would say he's a top 50 player. He coached him and he played under him. I could see him rising into right now he's outside the top 200 recruit. I could see him definitely rising up into the top 150 or even possibly inside the low top 100s. I mean, he doesn't have elite track speed and elite speed, but he's run low 11s, high 10s, I believe, on the 100 meters. So at someone of his size, he's definitely has enough athleticism to rise up into top 50 and be a riser this coming season.
That's right. And then one last thing, sticking on him, they're talking about that his former high school teammate, Ethan Barber, has been committed to Georgia as well. So, I mean, when you look at this Milton team and their offense, do you think any of these guys on this upcoming season will end up going to UGA, or will the Dogs miss out on them?
I think it's hard. Georgia hasn't particularly recruited Milton particularly great in past years. I think if they're going to get somebody, CJ Wiley is the guy. I just won't blank on his name. At that camp at Douglas County that they hosted, there was another wide receiver there that really blew up.
Tristan Payne.
Yeah, Tristan Payne. I could definitely see him be a big riser in this coming season. I'm not sure up to a level of a Georgia or a big SEC school, but I mean, he showed he showed great ability to understand route running and to play leverages for these defensive backs that were there on last weekend.
I agree with him. A team to watch too for CJ is LSU. His dad went there, dad played there. So obviously that was his dad's alma mater. Obviously they got good receivers. They got Decorian Moore. They got some dogs there. I think Jaheim Stewart's another one. But that is a team to watch as well for Wiley Services. Obviously Georgia's probably one of the front runners, but don't sleep on LSU.
Yeah, man, it's going to be very tough. But yeah, I think the storylines with him, can he become a top 50 prospect? We'll see. He's obviously running track right now. If he sheds that time down into the mid 10s, I think you have to consider him. Just numbers alone, he averaged 22 yards per catch last season. I mean, he was a big play machine.
He was the number one receiver.
Yeah. So I think he's that valuable, but said he might be at the G-Day game. That's something to watch because I think he's got an FSU trip coming up,
Yep.
a lot of other ones. But if he going to G-Day, I think that's a big highlight for him. So what do you expect just this year's G Day. It's going to be very exciting. But how important is it to get kids to your spring game, opposing to go to some of the other ones?
I think it's really big, especially for schools that have, like Georgia, that have large attendances for their spring games compared to, I think it was JT Daniels that brought it up when he played his spring game in 2021 at Georgia, compared to a place like USC where there was only a few thousand people. There was 50 or 60 at Georgia. I think that atmosphere for a scrimmage, it can really help recruiting compared to AUSC or some of these schools that mainly have 5,000-10,000 people at their spring games.
It's a good point. And then what's your take, kind of hating on the past few weekends? You've had some top recruits on campus at Georgia. Just who are some guys that caught your eye that were on Georgia's campus this past weekend or the past 2 weekends?
Well, Xavier Griffin out of Gainesville, 2026 pass rusher. I think On 3 has him as a top 40 recruit, was on campus. And now, he has ties to Alabama. I think he grew up there and grew up watching Alabama football. But now there's starting to be some rumblings that maybe Georgia is the favorite to get him in his recruiting class, even though he's only going into his junior year. And then I can't remember if he was on campus, but Juan Gaston out of Westlake, the massive 6'7", 240-pound offensive tackle I believe was on campus, and it's looking more and more likely that he'll end up at Georgia.
Yeah, he'd be a big get for them. He just got another 6'7" dude, Daniel Calhoun from Walton. So, you're pretty much shoring up your tackle spot. Some guys, over the future years that you feel pretty comfortable about, and they can use leverage and hold their own on the outside, even when in one-on-one matchups.
Yeah. I think Georgia's recruited offensive linemen really well, and they've really, under this offensive line coaching staff, you've seen a shift to more high-end guys that you're seeing. I think the average guy in this class was like 6'6", 2 or 330, and Juan Gaston really fits into what Georgia wants to do there.
Yeah, but he had to start as a freshman. Obviously, he was so big, but you got to think, being that big that early, I think he's gonna be able to just like really maximize his athleticism. But another guy that's committed that we've seen play, but I really want to see what he does this year. It's Jaden Perlade from Buford.
Yes,
yeah.
What do you think about him? Because people think about Buford, obviously KJ Bolden last year. They've got Edric Houston up front, but what do you think he's capable of this season in that linebacker role?
I think you could see a Tyler Atkinson type season from him. He's really fast. He's really long. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. I think at Buford this coming season, he's gonna. With Edric Houston gone, I think you may see him have more of a pass rusher role instead of a interior linebacker role. And I think also, that linebacker room for Buford is so talented. I think you could see where you could see him with double-digit sacks because because he's allowed to pass rush on plays that if you only had one linebacker of his caliber, you would put him back into coverage. But they have so many high 3-star, 4-star linebackers that he may very well be a high-end pass rusher for Buford this coming season.
Yeah, they got CJ Sibley. You throw in Montrez Walker, Jaden Perlade. They're loaded. A name y'all both should know, coming out the safety spot, 2026, absolutely blowing up. Nasir McCoy. It's going to probably play in that same role that KJ Bolden did. Names to know for Buford at the safety position, Nasir McCoy, 2026 class.
Interesting.
Yep.
But yeah, it certainly wasn't Buford's defense last year that gave him trouble. Some inconsistencies offensively, but yeah, they were rock solid. So yeah, I'm interested in it because obviously he played well, but I feel like there was so much star power on that team. He hasn't really gotten a lot of attention, as talented as he is. So I think people watching Buford, Najee highlighted their schedule last week. It is going to be tough. back when they had all those big win streaks, people used to criticize them because they were in a smaller classification. The school's grown so much that, I mean, they are playing top-notch opponents every single week now. The region's a little light, but man, yeah, early on, it's going to be crucial for them.
Quick thoughts. Hayden, before we let you go, we ask two more, let you go. What is your thoughts on Beaufort Douglas County this season? They're going to go toe-to-toe with each other. I think it's one of the best matchups. I'm sure it's going to be televised. Obviously, they're going to play Milton as well. But what's your thoughts on that matchup?
It's going to be one of the best matchups of the season. I mean, Douglas County went to the semifinals of 6A undefeated, got upset by Woodward Academy, who was on a Cinderella run to the semifinals. They had a 3 or 4 year starter at quarterback, and now they lost, and now they're bringing in DJ Bordeaux from Alpharetta, who's a 4-star quarterback. I mean, on three, I think it's the only place that has him ranked, but that's just because 2026 is so early.
Yes,
I think he's the number 2 quarterback in the state in the class of 2026 right now.
Which is kind of crazy. Actually, I have a hot take on that. Y'all might be shocked. I want to get your quick thoughts on this too, Hayden. So if I had to rate 2026, obviously it's still early, but if I had to go quarterbacks 1 to 3, you're probably going to look at me crazy, but I'm going to go Darnell Kelly 1, I'm going to go Brody McWhorter 2, and then I'm going to go probably DJ Bordeaux 3. If I had to rank them.
I don't think that's that hot of a take. Darnell Kelly has been viewed, I mean, when Juju Lewis was the number 1, he was viewed as number 2 and by many, and now I think ESPN has him rated a 4-star, but he showed a lot last year at Peachtree Ridge, and that he can be a great quarterback. McWhorter, I mean, had a great playoff run last year. He's going to go down probably as the best quarterback in Cass history. And
good point.
I mean, he plays with all kinds of talent. All 3 of them play with all kinds of talent, so that's not like an excuse for any of them. So I don't think that's a hot take all that much.
Respect that.
Yeah, and we'll see if we see some of these freshmen or upcoming guys that they're going to come in hot. Sure. I know we saw that Prince Avenue kid, Trucker.
Yeah.
Man, so I think, there's a great Trucker quarterback class, but watch out for some of these freshmen that are just going to come in ready to roll.
And watch Grayson's 2027 class.
Yes, TK Cunningham, T.A. Cunningham's younger brother, I think, has gotten 3 or 4 offers in the past month.
Yeah, talk about loaded. Absolutely
already
loaded.
6'5", 250.
Like what? Like what did they be feeding these guys, Hayden?
I don't know.
Grayson is doing his thing, obviously, in basketball, and that football team.
It's loaded.
Yes. They look the part.
No doubt. But Hayden, we appreciate you coming on, talking a little about UGA football. We know you'll have more next week, obviously, with GJ coming up and the latest recruit. I'm sure they'll land big-time recruit in the coming days, whether it's Mason Short or it's Matt Zollers or whoever makes a surprise move as well. We appreciate you coming on, always providing intel, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.
All right. So there goes Hayden, y'all. Hope you guys appreciate that segment. So we'll talk, obviously, with Max about Bama, latest that's going on with them. We'll segue a little bit. This is really predominantly a football show, but we'll segue a little bit of the basketball, what they've been able to do. They played in the Final Four for the first time in years, I think since maybe the 1990s, Graham. Am I right on that?
First
time Final Four ever. Thank you, Graham. See, I didn't even know that, so I had to ask the Bama fan. But yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about that as well. But that's our thoughts on that. Once we see Max, we'll bring him right on as well. But let's hit one more quick news. I want to get your thought on this, Craig, from just Colorado real quick before we conclude and bring Max on to talk a little bit about Bama. But here's a share screen. Y'all comment down below as well while Max gets set up. But I thought this was an interesting move for Colorado. So breaking from No Sco Zone, Colorado football hires George Hegeman as Director of Leadership and Engagement. Spent the last 3 years as IMG's Director of Football. He also served as an offensive line coach. Spent 7 years in NFL as both tackle and guard for the Dallas Cowboys, Eagles, and Buccaneers. A great hire for the Bluffs. He quickly leads off his introduction with a great message to the team. What's your thoughts on that hire?
I think the key, when I saw this, the key thing for me, you have a huge personality with Coach Prime. Everyone knows it. Now you have him coming in, and he's specifically trying to teach the players how to be leaders, lead by example. I think it's huge, and I think it's a unique balance. You allow Coach Prime to be Coach Prime, but then you have these other leadership lessons and things that the players can do. I think it's a smart choice.
I think it is too, and I think it takes a little bit of that pressure off of Coach Prime. Like obviously he's a leader, but like you said, he's kind of the swag guy. He's the moxie guy. He's somebody that you kind of just look at to kind of hype you up, right? Obviously he's a great coach. That's not what I'm saying that he's not, but I think this is a good move because IMG is a very successful high school program and high school academy that you can come in, be successful, and go play at a high level in college. So I think it kind of just lessens the burden a little bit for him, and then he got somebody he can kind of depend on for leadership when he's talking to guys, because you know how messages are, Craig. Sometimes you'll say it, hear Coach Prime keeps saying this, and it falls on deaf ears, but then you get a new voice in there, then it's like, oh, okay, maybe I need to listen to Coach Prime more. So I think it's just going to help them, fully and definitely going forward as a program and as a team.
Exactly. And I just like how it kind of balances out the personality of Coach Prime in a good way, I feel like.
Yes, 100% agree. But that is the quick news. We're going to conclude that there. We got our next insider, Max from Alabama, ready. So let's go ahead and bring him on. Hold on, Max. I'm going. All right. What's going on, Max?
How we doing, guys?
Doing good. Can't complain. How's everything?
It's good, man. Alabama's in the Final Four. Can't complain at all. Nothing to be sad about.
No doubt. I know you are very excited. We can't wait to talk hoops with you. But it's a couple things we'll talk about real quick with spring practice.
For sure.
Austin Mack, what are you seeing from him? I know it's a player you highlighted when we were talking. What are some things he's been doing out there?
Well, I feel like there's a reason the board brought him over and kind of not cleared out the quarterback room, but at least made room for Austin Mack to have a spot. I feel like I saw they released a couple videos on their Twitter over the past couple weeks, and it looks like he's getting some second team rep. Milroe is definitely, I feel like, the solidified number one, but that battle at quarterback 2 for Austin Mack and Ty Simpson, I think is getting interesting and heating up. And A-Day will definitely bring that out.
No doubt about it. I think it's going to be intriguing to see. Obviously, you guys are kind of retooling the O-line a little bit. Some guys left in the portal. What do you just think about that position overall? I mean, obviously, it's still early. You're going to have spring practices more. You're going to have the spring game. But going into before we hit that point, how do you feel about that room, offensive line room in general? Do you feel good about some of the talent that you guys acquired and how the guys have been working so far?
There's been some talent acquired. There's been Parker Brailsford from Washington, although he has missed the past 2 scrimmages that Alabama's had for undisclosed reasons. I hope everything's all right with him. But the other talent they brought in is Nikhil Beltran from Texas A&M just to help out at the tackle spot. And they got Caden Proctor back out of, I don't even know what happened, but he's back on the team. So it added some depth. And with the guys already there, like Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts, these guys provide a great interior offensive line. And throwing Brailsford in that makes for one of the top offensive lines in the country, in my opinion. It's just a matter of who fills out the tackles on the end and if Brailsford can stay with the team.
No doubt about it. It's going to be an interesting line to watch. We know, obviously, line was pretty good last year, Max, and, kind of in the national or college football playoff, it kind of deteriorated a little bit going up against the stout front of Michigan. So, obviously, it's going to be a position to watch if they can get it going. But can't wait to see what kind of happens there. It was one more person you wanted to hit on. Let's talk a little about Caleb Odom, obviously getting reps at receiver. But what stands out about him and what he's been able to do so far?
So it looks like he's making plays all over the field. I was looking online before this, and he is actually listed as a tight end on Alabama's roster. But I feel like that's not really set in stone. I feel like even though he's a tight end, he can still be split out wide. He can still be lined up next to the tackles as a tight end. But I feel like he's going to be a major impact just because of his pass catching ability and his size.
How nice is that, though, to kind of have that guy? We know historically Bama always has a really good tight end, O.J. Howard. Just guys from that position that can produce and end up going on to play NFL. How cool is it to have a freshman coming in that's uber talented and could potentially be a difference maker even as a freshman next year?
It's incredible. I mean, Alabama's tight end room now is pretty solid as it stands. I mean, there's guys like Danny Lewis, and they brought in Josh Cuevas from Washington as well, who both scored touchdowns in the scrimmage this last week. But there's Robbie Oots as well, a great blocking tight end, and throwing Odom in that mix just adds another level of another another element of pass catching, another element of blocking, just another guy to get the ball to.
I thought of you, Craig.
Yep, and then Max, A-Day is going to be coming up. Obviously, Jalen's going to get his reps, but do you see Dylan Lonergan, a guy that was rumored to maybe see time last year when it was a mess at the quarterback position? Who do you see having a kind of a big performance in the spring game?
From the quarterback position or just overall?
Yes, quarterback.
There's something about Austin Mack that stands out to me. It could be the 6'6" frame, it just could be the height, it could be the arm talent that he has, but I think he might surprise people coming up, especially in next week in A-Day.
Quick follow-up, and I'll go back to you, Craig. Do you think the leash is a little bit shorter this year for a Jalen Milroe who came in, had his struggles, right, had to kind of wait a couple of weeks behind some guys, obviously Dylan, the lacrosse player that was there. Mm-hmm. Do you think that Kalen DeBoer is going to pull the trigger faster if potentially Milroe has some of those same kind of struggles early on?
I think it would have to be quite drastic for Milroe to be pulled at some point. I feel like he is the solidified number one guy, and the guys behind him are not that I'm saying they're not talented. I'm just saying Milroe adds another level to the offense with his run game that gives problems for defenses.
And then Justice Haynes, what a name. Saw what he did in high school. I'll never forget before the Walton game, I said, if we can hold him to less than 230 yards, I think Walton has a chance. He had like 228 and they won. But there's been talk about him. Obviously, he's been a superstar for a long time, played at Buford, but how serious is his role, do you think, going to be this season? And then can he have an all-conference impact while at Alabama?
I believe so. I mean, I guess Alabama fans got their first real look at him last season in the Rose Bowl, and he got a lot of reps, a lot more than Bama fans thought he would. And he was making plays left and right, making runs, gaining first downs. But the running back room this year is very talented, including Haynes. I have very high hopes. I believe he is a superstar. But along with Haynes, there's Richard Young and there's Jam Miller. But then the one that no one's really talking about is freshman Daniel Hill. He's listed as 6'1", 230 pounds. And I've heard from scrimmages that he's been a problem on the goal line just based off sheer size.
Where's he from?
From Mississippi. Yeah.
I haven't heard about him. See, that's why you are insider, because that name I wouldn't even know.
So was he a transfer? Has he been
He's
there?
a freshman. He's coming in this year.
Yep. Very interesting. So with the new coaching staff, do you think that's something they'll try to kind of involve in the offense, a more physical ground game, or do you think it would be more?
I believe with the amount of talented running backs on the roster, and also like with the tight end sets that they can put out there, I believe there's some good opportunities to ground and pound and get the run game back to where it was. But it all starts with Justice Haynes and Jam Miller, like you guys were saying, and those guys will be Alabama's 1-2 punch for the foreseeable future.
Then what are you expecting in the spring game? Obviously, you're going to want to get a lot of recruits there to watch it, but have you been to any Alabama spring games in the past? And then what do you think it's going to be like, just the overall energy?
It's a different type of energy this year. In the past, it's been fun, but I think this year will just be different just because a new coach, it's a new type of energy around the program entirely. And I feel like Alabama fans will show. And Saban's first spring game in 2007, I believe there was like close to 90,000 fans there just for the spring game. So I feel like they'll show out in some way just for DeBoer and to welcome him to the program.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That would be good. And then do you want to shift to the basketball? Because obviously,
please, Craig.
Yeah, obviously losing this last year, seeing Saban go, that was tough. But you guys are in the Final Four now. What do you think the chances are? And what's impressed you most just throughout this season with your team?
It used to be a running joke with Alabama fans, and it would be, what happens first? Nick Saban retires or Alabama basketball makes a Final Four. And for that to happen
same year,
3 months apart from each other, I mean, it's been a whirlwind of emotions for Alabama fans, but I feel like they're pretty excited. I feel like this team didn't come out of nowhere because the talent had always been there, but they just hadn't performed to where everyone was expecting throughout the regular season. Given they did have a tough schedule playing teams like Purdue and Creighton and Arizona, but team's finally clicking at the right time, and now they're in Phoenix in their first Final Four.
I think that tough schedule prepared y'all, though. I mean, when you're
For
going
sure.
up against those type of teams, obviously, they've had some deep runs. Purdue's obviously in the Final Four as well. Creighton had a pretty good run this year to the Sweet 16, so I think that definitely prepared you. And I got to shout out Coach Nate Oates. I mean, he's doing a fantastic job with you guys. I think last couple of years ago, he made some history making the Elite Eight for the first time in years. So I think he's doing a great job with you guys' program. Obviously, last year kind of sucked a little bit because, with some of the controversy and everything around Brandon Miller, but I thought he did an impeccable job with you guys. And what I think that stands out, and I want to hear your thoughts, Max, of what stands out about the Alabama basketball team. But I feel like when I watch the tournament, I feel like it's a different guy every single night. It's not just one guy you guys are depending on, but I feel like it's a different guy stepping up, whether it's your big, it's your guards. Somebody's always coming up, stepping up big for you guys.
For sure. And last year, nothing against last year's team, but last year's team, I thought, had more than enough talent to at least reach a Final Four, if not win the championship. Brandon Miller headlining that talent. But this year's team just feels more like an actual complete team. Rely on each other. Everyone can make their shots. Everybody's going to get their shots up, and everyone's going to have their opportunity to go score a bucket and do what they need to do for the team to win. It just feels like a more complete team all around.
And then, Max, you were talking about some of the adjustments that you've seen in the game, the defensive adjustments, switching to zone. Oh, you've been probably watching them all season long, but what have you seen in that department just during the tournament?
Well, I've seen Alabama's this season, they're very undersized. And having Grant Nelson at the 5, I feel like has been beneficial, at least through this tournament, because he's playing more as a big. And you saw it in the UNC game. I mean, he was all over Armando Bacot, giving him trouble in the post, including Nick Pringle as well. It's just a matter of guys playing their role and sticking to their role and hopefully being able to stop a juggernaut in UConn.
Speaking of, Craig, let's go ahead and preview the matchup. What's your thoughts playing them on Saturday? Obviously, I think it's going to be a great Final Four. I don't know if you saw, Craig, but the numbers are back up. That's why I feel like the quality of product is better this year, too. We talked about that, I think, either off air or on air with you, Max, but they got up to, I think it was 18 million viewers, highest since 2019, Craig, as far as viewership in the Elite Eight. But what's your thoughts on that matchup, Max, them playing up against UConn?
It's going to be a tough one. UConn is no joke whatsoever. They got guys all over the court. And it all starts with Klingon, and he is an animal on the inside, and he is a problem. I've seen him getting shot up to, I think, at least the lottery in terms of the NBA draft. But
saying number 1.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. There's just some rumors about that. But he is an absolute force on both ends of the floor, and it was very much apparent in the Illinois game when he was blocking shots left and right. And on the other end, rim running down to the basket, dunking. It was just like play after play after play. And it goes from him, it goes to Tristan Newton, it goes to Stephon Castle, who went to Newton from around here. But yeah, they just have guys all over the court who just like to play, and they're coached very well. Dan Hurley's probably, if not the best coach, one of the best coaches in the sport right now. It's going to be a great game. Alabama's got to keep their pace like they did in the UNC game. They got to make UConn play their game and try to run with them. And if Alabama's hitting their shots, I think it'll be a good game.
No doubt. And I was telling Craig, I think if you want to do a carbon copy of what success should look like and how you can get the best team right now in this era of college basketball, I think UConn is the blueprint right now because, like I said, he's getting guys. Got Stephon Castle, who's a 5-star player out of high school. Got another 5-star player coming in. Those guys being ready to play and not being upset. Oh, I'm not starting. I'm coming to the 6-man, but now he's starting. You got that, and then you go and get in the transfer portal. You get a known veteran, someone that's played in the league for a while or in college basketball for a while, and Tristan Newton. Then you got guys like Klingon that come back. I mean, this team lost 5 of their seniors from last year, 3 wins in the NBA. I mean, for him to retool it like that and get them back to this Final Four and back on this stage, I think it speaks volumes.
It's insane. It shows how good of a coach Hurley is and retooling this team and not even necessarily rebuilding because they had the players, but just getting them back to the Final Four. It's just a tough thing to do. There hasn't been a repeat champ since, what was it, Florida?
07,
right? So, I mean, they're looking to make more history. They're a very good team. Very good team.
Yep. And then one of the rumors or speculation about Alabama was defensively that it just, in terms of the average points allowed, they were not very solid in that department. But you're going up against a UConn team. There's not really one guy that's going to try to go off for 30. They're well-oiled machine. What do you think defensively is going to be the key to Is it going to be playing the zone, stopping the 3-point, not getting into foul trouble? Where do you see the defense playing a part?
Well, from an outside perspective, it really looks like there's no weaknesses on this team. So I feel on the UConn team, at least. So it feels like someone is going to get theirs at some point. In the past 2 games, they've played very good bigs in both Armando Bacot from UNC and then PJ Hall and Ian Shefflin from Clemson. And in the UNC game, at least I can remember that they switched to a zone. And while UNC was hitting their threes early on in the game, the zone proved to be effective just because Bacot was being limited towards the end of the game. I think that could be huge. I think maybe going to a man and getting face up in these guys' faces and keeping them from shooting will be huge. But I feel like personally, it all starts with managing Klingon and limiting him as much as possible. Because he, not even an X factor, because he is probably the best player on their team. He is the guy you have to stop.
The problem with him, Max, is like he's a guy like you don't have to get a lot of touches, and he can just kind of get going. Like he can get going on the defensive side of the ball, just getting blocks and running the floor. Next thing you know, you look up, he got 4 to 6 points already, and he's in a groove. Like so, it doesn't take much for him.
No, not at all. And if he gets a block on the other end, you bet it that he is running as fast as he can down the other end and is looking to dunk the ball and hype up the crowd and get the UConn crowd into it, get their fan. And that's how they do it. Dan Hurley said it. They're not good at closing out close games, so they'll just beat everybody up instead. It's fun. I mean, I guess that's a good strategy if it works for you.
Yeah.
And then how comfortable are you with Alabama just going with a blistering pace in this next game, playing super aggressive and trying to control the tempo?
I feel like they have to. I feel like there's no other way they can win. I feel like if they're getting their shots off and like they're missing it, they will fall. If they're getting their shots, getting their looks, they will fall at some point. It's just a matter of making sure everybody's playing their role, making sure Grant and Nick Pringle are boxing out and getting on the boards, getting on the glass, limiting them in fast break opportunities, just making sure we're hitting our shots early and keep it a close game from the start. Can't let it get out of hand like that Illinois game. I've never seen anything like that in my life. That was unbelievable.
30-0 run.
Yeah, and do you feel like it's a live by the 3, die by the 3 game for you guys?
I feel like before the tournament, it was more of live by the 3, die by the 3 kind of team. But I feel like now they've showed they could play inside with some of the best in the country, including Bacot and PJ Hall. I feel like if the drive and the kick has been huge for Alabama, just for like creating space and opening things up. If they're driving and forcing Klingon out to the 3-point line and maybe feed it back down low, then I feel like they can have a better shot as well.
Then was there any difference you saw with the approach just from the North Carolina game? Obviously a huge win that propelled you guys to the latest win over Clemson.
Sears, as much of an impact he has on every game, I feel like this last game against Clemson was all his, and he just took it over towards the end. I mean, I think he started 0 of 8 and then finished 6 of 7. I mean, he was unguardable at some times and just hitting shots from all over the court and big-time shots, too. There was a stretch where Gerard from Clemson hit 2 back-to-back threes, 2 big threes. And then Alabama came back down, and Jaron Stevenson, freshman out of Chapel Hill, knocked one down from the corner. And Sears hit a step back that put Alabama up 9 after Clemson cut it to, I believe, a 3-point game. Just huge shot after huge shot. I mean, you got to get him going if you have any chance to win. They want to have any chance to win.
Yep, and I think when you said the drive and the kick, that's exactly what we've seen Alabama do these last few rounds. It's like be aggressive, and then if they try to stop you, kick it back out to the top of the key and nail down a 3. So I'm looking at the point spread. Obviously, UConn's going to be very heavily favored, but what do you expect just in the first half? Do you think Alabama's going to be able to go toe-to-toe and just keep it a game?
I feel like they got to come out loose, and they got to come out with nothing to lose. No one expected them to be here, and so there's no reason as to why they can't win this game. As hard as it's, as much of a tall task as it sounds, they should be playing loose and free basketball and should be getting up their shots when they can. I feel like if they can hit their shots early, this will be a good one.
And then, did anyone in this office have Alabama in the Final Four?
I'll admit I didn't. I'll admit it. I didn't. But it happens.
Oh,
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Graham, you
wrong.
didn't? Is he in another room? Oh, he's in another room. Never mind. Yeah, I don't think nobody did. I think
Yeah, I
See?
don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No one
Crazy.
did.
Nah.
Crazy.
No,
they got
it's
over
good.
the hump.
Yes, they did.
No
Yeah.
doubt.
Man.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Max. Spreading a little bit about the Alabama program. It's going to be a fun Final Four. We can't wait. See
sure.
who kind of comes out on top. Purdue's going to play NC State. That's going to be a battle of the bigs as well. DJ Burns versus Zach Edey. So I think it's going to be a great Final Four. Both sides, the men and women's, and we can't wait for it.
Yeah, shout out NC State representing Raleigh. It's huge. It's huge. NC State men's and women's getting in the Final Four. It's a big deal. It's a big deal for the pack. But yeah, thank y'all for having me on.
Yes, sir. We'll see you next week, man. Appreciate it.
Sounds good.
All right. So there goes Max. So we got a couple more topics before we wrap up the show for today. We're gonna hit one more on college. Well, I guess it's recruiting, college football. I just gotta just get your reaction, Craig. You've been in this team for a while, over a decade. So we had some big breaking news yesterday. Let me see if I can find it. I'm sure the audience knows, but let's share the screen. What is your reaction to this, Craig? Boom. I guess I'll go ahead and read it. Industry veteran Steve Wiltfong joins On3 as VP of Recruiting and Transfer Portal.
Ooh, I've not seen that.
Yes. Formerly of 247.
Well, they all seem to be going to On3. But yeah, I mean, they're crushing it. They're more involved than any of the other platforms in the NIL stuff. They're releasing the stars before everyone else, and they've got all the assets behind them.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a power move. This guy is well respected in the industry. He's been around for a long time. You pair him with Chad Simmons, you got a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, both of those guys are well respected, goats in the game, and them two, being on the same network, providing intel, and I've seen his phone bombs dropping as well. I mean, I think, they earn, like I said in my tweet, On3's not messing around. And to land him, I think, says a lot.
Yeah, they're completely taking over.
Yeah, they're going to be the one-stop shop here pretty soon. But that's our reaction to that. That was the biggest news yesterday. A lot of people thought it was April Fool's joke. I seen Rusty comment on a couple of tweets that said, no joke, just not April Fool's. So that goes to show you that it was for real. But that is our college news. We got our final segment, NFL news, and then we're going to close this out. But Craig, I'm sure as a Chiefs fan, you don't feel too good about this one. But Rashee Rice is connected to a 6-vehicle crash in Dallas, Texas. Currently, NFL is still investigating. Apparently, they said he also fled the scene as well. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, he's one of the most important guys to our offense, first and foremost, heading into the future, not even this season. So it's awful to see this happen. And then I learned about it yesterday, and then he was apparently missing. I mean, you just scratch your head when players do things like this, speeding,
Lambo,
not wearing a helmet
racing
on your motorcycle like Ben Roethlisberger back in the day.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
The only reason you don't wear a helmet is if you want to show off your face. There's no other logical reason. Speed racing.
It's just not smart.
It's illegal for a reason. Not one of those guys, but if you get into an accident and you're going 100 miles per hour, you have to be like punished for it. That's why it's against the law. I guess some people they get their new fancy car and they want to take it to the limit. They've seen too many movies. They want to be Fast and Furious. They want to be an outlaw. But if you want to race cars, you can sign up for NASCAR.
Yeah, my thing is though, Craig, if you got the money, you got the car, why don't you just go, rent on the track for a day and just go on the track and go, race it. Just do it the smart way. I mean, if you got the money, obviously you could rent on the track to go test it and go race there. I mean, that just makes to me more sense, than doing it on the street, risking lives at the same time. Fortunately, nobody was killed. It's just not smart. You think the players would learn from other previous examples. I just think it's not a good look. And I think, the Chiefs, obviously, you guys need him. Like I said, he's not just this year, but he's your guys' future. And he came on really strong last year. Towards the end, became number one receiver and a guy you guys depended on. So,
Yeah, I mean, this is people do drag racing. They do this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I've seen a head-on-head crash, two people messing around, and then both drove off with busted-up cars. And then people, when they do this, and then something goes wrong and they get in a wreck, they leave the scene. I mean, this leaving the scene after causing a chain reaction, like let's say, okay, you're going too fast, you lose control, another car has to swerve out of the way, they hit someone else, and then you leave that mess behind you. It's like there's definitely going to be a punishment. They're saying he's scolded for it, but no, this is, I mean, it's unacceptable. And
yeah, it'll be a suspension.
yeah, certainly.
No doubt. So we'll see what happens. That's our reaction to it. We'll get all the details, and when it finally comes down, we'll obviously react to it on Underrated and Overlooked podcast. But we got two more before we wrap. Interesting question I wanted to pose, Craig, which team do you think is most likely, draft is only 23 days away, most likely to make a trade on draft night?
I think when you look at who's sitting in the middle,
Yep.
and then who needs a quarterback,
Yep.
it's got to be the Denver Broncos,
That's a
100%.
good one.
And that is after Russell Wilson left. And they might not necessarily do it, but if they're looking at this batch of quarterbacks and they have, let's say they have like a top 2 or top 3, and then one of them gets off the table, they can move up by not giving away too much and make sure they get their guy, because I don't know who else they're going to rely on if they don't capitalize in the draft for a quarterback position. So I think it's probably them, maybe the Giants, but I definitely expect to see a trade, but I think it will be someone trading up for a quarterback.
Yeah, I think so too. Giants are kind of at a good position to definitely nab a quarterback at number 6. Hopefully they don't do a stretch like how they have before in years past. My team, I think, like you said, Denver's 1. I'm gonna go Raiders
100%
at
yeah,
13.
number 2.
I think that's a team that you could see trade up. Obviously, they got guys coming over, got Gardner Minshew, but you need your QB of the future, and I think this is the draft to do it. And we'll see if any guy falls. I mean, you see it every year. A guy falls, pretty far, and then he gets scooped up by a team. So I can see Raiders. Obviously, like you said, Denver's top as well. I say Minnesota at 11 as well as another team that could. They've been linked to Drake May. We'll see what New England does. Maybe Arizona moves out of that 4 spot. That could be an interesting trade between them two because, they can go get they need another playmaking weapon for, obviously, Kyler Murray. So that's going to be one. My last one is Seattle at 16. I could see them trading up and trying to get another playmaker potentially or a defensive weapon on that side. I could see them trying to get Brock Bowers.
That'd be big.
Yeah, for that.
I always think that's an interesting scenario because he is that big of a game changer. You're getting that guy his rookie season, and that is a tight end for the future. I think it's that smart to get him, but trading up to get a quarterback, I think it's got to be the move for Denver if they want to get an impact player. But I mean, I'm seeing them talking about trading up for JJ. I don't know if he's going to go in the top 3 or like they're saying. I really don't know.
I don't think so. I think he'd be one that slides a little bit. I mean, obviously, he'll probably be that top 4 quarterback taken, but yeah, I think you could.
It's not even just his talent; it's like those teams and the team needs. I just don't see him going that high.
No,
but we'll see. But I think it's going to be, as you said, Las Vegas or Denver.
No doubt. All right, last topic to close this out, Craig. Will this be Dak Prescott's last season in Dallas?
Man, it'll be an end of the era. I don't think it will.
That's a bold take. Okay, you don't think so?
No.
I think if they don't make a run to an NFC Championship game, they don't got to necessarily win a Super Bowl, but if he can get them to an NFC title game and have them compete at a high level, I think his job's safe. But if they don't get to the NFC title game, I think it's done. I think they move on.
Here's why I hesitated, because if you get rid of Dak, do you think they're going to try to land another highly paid quarterback right now, or would they go in the draft?
They're going to go in the draft. Yeah, they're going to get a guy.
And who is I mean, that would require they're probably gonna have a good season this year. They'll be 500 or a little above it. That's my favorite thing when it went to 17 games. Someone was like, "Great, we're gonna finish 8-8-1," because they're always 500.
I like that.
Yeah,
I
but
like that.
but man, I don't know. Getting rid of Dak,
It's tough,
they've
but
invested so much into him. I feel like
you have too many guys to pay. You still got to pay Micah Parsons. You still got to pay CeeDee Lamb. You know, you let a couple guys walk. If he doesn't have that type of season for Jerry, I don't see it. But if he's knocking on the door, I think they pay him. But the contract's gonna be over $200 million.
yeah, I mean, he's definitely they're
So
wearing out their welcome a little bit.
yeah, so that's why I say if he does not get them to an NFC title game or beyond, I don't think they keep him. Then they move on and get a quarterback in the draft. Maybe Shador.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
I feel like they like him though,
They
despite
do.
everything.
Oh, they do. But I think it's like you said, you can kind of wear out your welcome,
Yeah,
you know, after a while.
man, the Cowboys are so funny.
Hilarious team. Hilarious team. Yes.
We're all pulling for Dak.
Yeah, there's no hate. I mean, obviously you
Because
want him to
I
do
mean,
well.
especially Chiefs fan, the NFC, it's like, hey, go Cowboys. Doesn't bother me if they end up winning, but yeah, some of the great seasons and then just in the playoffs, some of the absolute breakdowns they've had. They need it. They need him to lead them to
It's
the
time.
championship. You're right.
Yeah, it's time. But that's all we got for today, guys. Appreciate you tuning in to another episode of Underrated and Overlooked. Make sure you guys follow us. Go to scoretl.com for all the latest articles, sights, and sounds. Make sure you go to the YouTube page, like, comment, and subscribe there. And hope you guys enjoyed another episode. We'll see you guys next week, and I'll be back a little bit later for Keeping It Real with Najee Wilkins, The Girls Show. So see you guys soon. Peace.